What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad recap episode on marriage. Today, we're going to be talking about, you've probably heard me say it 100 times, the number one choice you can make in your life, besides following Christ, is who you marry. So please listen to this episode on marriage, take some advice, learn some things, step in, ask some questions of me. If you have any questions, please reach out. If you hear something that strikes your fancy, jump back, listen to the full episode, learn as much as you can, take notes, and just pour into being the best husband that you can be, to just learn as much as you can about how to be a solid husband to your wife. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. Enjoy this recap episode. Thank you all very much for listening in. Please, again, like, subscribe, all of that stuff that you need to do, and have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you all in January. Thank you so much. At the Connect Man is, before we dive into anything, it's actually under the financial category, but before we dive into any numbers, we ask them to go to their wife and write down what are the top 10 things that bring you joy. It's a really great way to start a conversation about whatever it is with money, budgets, whatever. So on our anniversary recently, which is back in August, I took my wife to lunch, and we had just done that with the men. And so I did that with her. We had done it before a long time ago, but I did that with her. I printed it out and took it, and I said, hey, write down the top 10 things that bring you joy. Which, sidebar, usually it doesn't have a lot to do with money, and it gives you some perspective of what you're focusing on. One of the things on that sheet was quality time after the kids go to bed. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, man, I never asked her. I just focused on when is my working energy most productive, coupled with when are the kids not around. And that equaled working in the evenings. And I just made the assumption my wife is relaxing, she's got the kids put to bed, and dishes are done, she's just chilling. And just recently I came to the realization through that exercise that I've been robbing my wife of quality time, like what she considers 5 love languages style, our quality time. And so I said, okay, I'm going to actively choose to make a change here. And I even told David and Stu this. I said, I want you guys to know I'm going to put my family before our business. You are likely going to see me be slightly less productive in the next couple of weeks while I figure this out, because I am currently doing all of my work at night, and I'm not going to do it at night anymore. I'm going to figure out how to do it in the morning. Spoiler, I have a 3-month-old, so that was unsuccessful. I'm usually trying to sleep as much as possible until the absolute last minute. And so, I've just chosen to try and say, okay, is today a day where you have the kids, to my wife, you have the kids, you feel like you're under control and there's not too much chaos. I'm going to take 2 or 3 or 4 hours. I'm going to go to a coffee shop and I'm going to crush as much stuff as I can for this whole week in 1 or 2 couple-hour blocks a week at a coffee shop. But that was a conscious decision to lower my efficiency, if you will, to return one of the important love languages to my wife that I didn't realize I had taken away. Yeah, that's phenomenal. I'm definitely going to have to do that with my wife to figure that out. I remember I was just talking to one of my friends about this when we were at ADP Icon last week, where she was asking about like goals and setting goals and all this stuff, and like how do you continue chasing, when do you know that you've got enough, or when do you whatever, right? It was just a lot of conversation about goals.
God, what a good question.
And
what's enough?
No kidding. That is a phenomenal question, right? But so I remember sitting at a Rod Khleif event, multifamily event, and listening to him talk about how you write everything down that you want. Doesn't mean you're actually going to get it. Doesn't mean that you're just going to write everything down that you want in life. And then you're going to be building out this whole life. And I built out this entire life, all of my goals, all of my wishes, everything was going to be like, we're going to be owning a Cessna Citation that fits 8 people at least. I'm going to be flying around everything I could. Then I started driving towards that. And I said, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I never once sat down to talk to my wife about it. Never. She wasn't at the event. She had no idea what was going on. She had no clue about it. So I built this whole life for us that was all about what I thought our life should be. And I was like, what a jerk. So I was trying to explain to her, I said, there's always going to be something, right? My goals changed when I got married to my wife, because I didn't even know what a savings account was when I got married to my wife. And then I realized, holy crap, you're an idiot, Adam. What are you doing? And my life changed. My goals changed. It wasn't just, I'm going to go get a job that I make $100,000 a year and enjoy the coast, because I was going to go back to New York or be a state trooper. That changed drastically when I got married. And then again, have kids. Goals completely changed, right?
everything changed when I had kids. So so it's a constant reassessment of what is enough and what is it enough in what? Like, you didn't have enough quality time with your wife. You didn't necessarily know you didn't, right? But it was sitting down and assessing and understanding and looking at the whole route that gave you the understanding that she doesn't have enough quality time, which thus means you didn't have enough quality time because one can't have enough and the other one not. It's just not possible for that. That's not a balancing scale. So I think that constantly assessing what is enough and what is in which categories needs to be looked at. My wife and I were sitting down doing some 2024 planning last week, and I was telling her, I was like, I really want to do a better job structuring our businesses. That in the military, we always had the hit by a bus theory, right? Or the hit by a bus problem, right? If you get hit by a bus today, does somebody that replaces you in your seat tomorrow know how to do your job? And if I get hit by a bus today, does my wife know where what all of our assets are, what all of our stuff is? Not really. I've got like a couple spreadsheets, and hopefully she finds the spreadsheets that help her figure this out. But have you given thought into the structure of what you're doing for future understanding, or are you still just at the beginning stages of just building something in and haven't really given that much thought yet?
I think we're still early. I think that needs work. And that was definitely a big takeaway from the last abundance trip was literally going through that process and understanding like, hey, do you really want your wealth? If I were to die, do I really want my wife having to go through probate for all these other things?
Yeah.
How easy is this transition going to be? Like, how are loans going to get paid? And just like forward. And I think we're really taking that step first is like, implementing LastPass to simple one, just password sharing and having a master password for all that. But I think my wife and I do a good job communicating them. So she's an attorney and I'm more on the investment side. And so they're very different. And we do a good job though, communicating with each other on like, hey, what's going on in my world, what's going on in your world. And I think that she understands the business, like from a fundamental standpoint. It's not like he comes in totally clueless. So I think having that form of communication is super important too.
What has your wife thought about the business side? First, what's her focus in law? What does she focus on?
So she represents injured workers, workers' compensation in Pennsylvania. So she works for one of the biggest workers' comp company here. It's called Palm the Hockey. And she is, and just to give her a little shout out here. So she definitely is the best female work comp attorney in the state of Pennsylvania. Just in terms, and she handles more cases than any other female attorney because her firm is the biggest and she's essentially one of the top attorneys in terms of caseload. So I think that's incredibly, I'm like always blown away by that. I think that's so cool that she's literally there's no other woman doing what she's doing in the state. And I think she should be really proud.
So as she's growing in her law firm side of the house and you're growing on the real estate side of the house, what kind of conversations are you guys having about what that looks like with the kids, what that looks like with the growth, like what kind of trajectory you guys are wanting to do together versus individually?
Yeah, that's so great. And we're working on it. And that's something that we're talking more about now. We're having more of those conversations about, hey, like, how do we, in 5 years, when 8 and 6, we want to make sure that we're around more. So it's like, all right, how do we set ourselves up for that? And my wife, she loves her job. Her mom worked her entire childhood as well. And so she saw that firsthand, like how hard her mom worked and her mom was successful. And so she has that driven personality. So I don't really, from our conversation, she doesn't really envision a life where she's working. And, but I think we're trying to figure out, like, what does working mean? Maybe that's 3 days a week, or maybe it's 5 days a week, or can it be from anywhere? Can it be remote? Can we be in Europe? Can we be in Hawaii? Like, how do we set it up so that we can do it that way? And on the investment side, I think it's, really setting it up for that, building that cash flow so that if we wanted to, we could just be done, right? And just have our cash flow in properties or our loans and from that standpoint too. But I think we see visions and potential to really make it way bigger than originally thought, because it's like we already have a lot of momentum. We already have a lot of success. And so can definitely see it growing really quickly.
Okay. Walk me through how you would want that conversation to go even if you walk me through the actual conversation or maybe what your future conversation is wanting to be, what that looks like for
actually preparing and sitting down like strategically, like how do you guys foresee sitting down to actually make these discussions? Because if she's growing like crazy and she's like ready to take over the firm, right, in a theoretical situation, and you're like, dude, we already have, now we're on our second $100 million fund, third $100 million fund. That's a lot of stuff going on. So, how do you picture chasing that down? Because again, you have to have a purpose. What is your guys' purpose? And B, how do you foresee that purpose continuing to grow?
Yeah. I'd say we're both ambitious people, but we're also very cognizant of spending time with our kids. Like, we're pretty good at shutting down, making sure we're spending the right time with our kids and whatnot. And so I think we're really like family first. I think that's definitely incredibly important to us, where we're not going to sacrifice, no matter like how great work is or whatever the potential could be. The family is going to come first. Our daughters are going to come first. And we just want to set ourselves up so that we can be there, and that we're using all different tools that we can work from anywhere. And in terms of setting up those conversations, I think about that a lot. And in the past, like, I would randomly at dinner just bring it up. Hey, what are your core values? Like, I'd learn something at a conference and regurgitate it like randomly. And I think what's better is like doing it planning a date night and being like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this X, Y, and Z. I'd love to talk to you about, for us, I'd love to talk to you about childcare at our next date night. Like, what should we do? Our kids are in daycare. All right, maybe we should get a nanny, or maybe let's get an au pair. So different strategies around that. Same thing with the idea of, one thing we did on my back, we talked about like bucket list items, but in age brackets. Yeah, we did that together. We scheduled a date night where we spent an hour together talking through that. And it's great for me sharing what's important to her. And like, all right, she really wants to go on a girl trip with my daughters, just the three of them, to Europe. It's okay. Like, what's the ideal age for them to do that? I was like, maybe I was a teenager. So it's like, all right, well, in our 40s, let's make sure that's a priority. So I think just even talking through that and setting that up is love. I think the more you can plan ahead and then have like really thoughtful conversations, it's a lot of fun.
My wife and I are just now starting to do that. And I'm guessing you're a decent amount, maybe 5 or 6 years younger than me, just based off of the time you said you were in college. But you're well ahead of the fact that you have a 1 and 3 year old. So we're sitting here with an 8-year-old, and my wife's getting ready to retire after 20 years in the military. And I'm thinking to myself, man, we have a lot of planning that we need to do. And I love the time bracket. I was talking to somebody about that recently on one of the more recent podcasts, about there are certain things you can only do in a certain window, in a certain window of time. So plan those things out so that you can actually do it. And now we're starting to do that now, where we're really, that 2024 planning meeting I was just telling you about, that was one of the first very intentional times I'm sitting down, because I kept doing the same thing you were doing. I'd come back from a conference, or I'd have an idea. I'd be like, Raquel, what do you think about 10 years from now? She's like, well, what? I just got done making a bottle. I'm in the middle of trying to eat a steak. What are you talking about? And it's, man, Adam, like, just because it's popping up in your brain and you're all excited doesn't mean that it's the right time for the conversation. But I think the intentional planning is by far key on where we needed to go in with the family. And I would really like to include, so we're doing Fambundance in February or January. And I know one of the first Fambundance trips I went on, we did that. Like, we sat down with a big poster board and like cutting things out, or what do you want on the goals, and where do you want to be with the family, and how do you want all these things to go. So I really want to be able to include like this guy into those conversations. You say, hi? Yeah. In being able to build all of that stuff out, what things does he find to be important before I hit 10, Daddy? I want to be able to do whatever. Okay, let's see if we can figure out how to put that in the plan. But
yeah, that's cool. My wife and I just read the book Family Board Meeting by Jim Shields, and we read it together. Whatever, it's 100 pages. It would take you an hour, maybe 2 hours. But yeah, just those are really helpful too. Like, for sure, that one-on-one time, so you can get to know each other, and whether it's like your spouse or your kids, like, it's important.
Yeah, I put those in my calendar, and I've done a terrible job at actually doing them, because it's like I put them in my calendar, and then which I shouldn't put them that far in advance. I should have a space or something, but like trying to implement those family board meetings or those one-on-ones, it's like I put it in the calendar and then I failed miserably at doing it, because you never know until the week before when some other thing comes up or some conference goes, and it's putting that priority in there and making sure that you're preserving that time. And you need to hold me accountable to taking you out every quarter and spending a day with you, just me and you.
I'll tell you what, some of the early years, the grind with the economy in 09, 10, it was, and 3 little kids, it was just the mad dash, right? And we have been off and on going to see a counselor, off and on for most of our relationship, just to do maintenance on the relationship. And I think that's important. And we actually just started back. We've been to 3 or 4 sessions in the last few months just to make sure we get off track, and then we go, oh, stop, wait a minute. We need to go do some maintenance on us. And when you have kids starting to leave, there's a little bit of an identity crisis that goes on with mom, right? Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I've been this for a while, and we do talk about it. And on my goals and objectives, I need to make sure that we talk about the transition as the kids leave. And sometimes we do have to go back and revisit, why did we get married? What made us get married 20 years ago? And we like to ski. We're mountain folks, right? The name of the company's Peak 10. That's for the mountains. And sometimes we do have to remind ourselves why we fell in love. And let's go do those things that we fell in love for. So it is reminding each other and talking about and having authentic conversations.
What are your thoughts on putting like that time in on the calendar? Do you put time in on the calendar that this is time for my wife, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're getting better. Okay. We're getting better. It's always a work in progress.
I want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we can learn from the bad and the ugly just as well as we can learn from the good.
Yeah. We've met each other through GoBundance, and I was at the couples event in Austin last year, and Jesse Ithler spoke, and my wife attended with us. And he spoke, and he has that big ass calendar, right? The thing is ginormous, and I just got my 2024. And so we pull out the big ass calendar, and we've made that part of our family thing with the kids. During holidays, so Thanksgiving or Christmas, we'll pull that thing out, and all the kids will get the Post-it notes, and we'll put their sports on. And we need to make sure that we identify when are the family times and when are the family vacations, and we get input from all the kids. And part of that is making sure my wife and I have some trips. I actually, out of frustration, I planned out a whole bunch of trips for next year already because I realized that we do have to make those times. And sometimes it is a fight, whether it's a fight to get the family to go on a vacation together because we have all these other existential sports or commitments pulling at us. But we do have to make time. We do have to force but when we get there, we're like, gosh, we're so glad we're here.
Life is going to happen. You're going to need to have that strong relationship with your spouse. So you might as well be working on it now so that when it happens, you're not already at the end of your rope.
I feel like right now is the time. Now is a time to have that strong relationship because it is tough out there. And we're coming off the peak, right? We're in the valley now. And what lesson did you learn when you're from the peak, or what decisions did you make in the peak? And once you start realizing when you're in the valley, what's his name? Dr. Hardy, I forget where I looked at this, but what lesson did I learn? And as soon as you realize that lesson and start embracing it and getting better, that's when you start to grow, right? And I feel like right now is that time I'm going, wow, I made that decision to buy that deal in 2021. And then everything happened when we closed. By the time we closed in May of 2022, wow, what did we learn? Let's not make that decision again. And I'm starting to realize, what did I do wrong and what did I learn to grow from that?
For sure.
And the wife is important to that. Important to have.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, like, dragging that into the wife side of the house, what have we done in our relationship that made us so strong going through this hard part? Or what have we done in our relationship that made us so weak when we got to this particular pivot point? Because, when you're talking about financial crisis or financial worries being one of the number one reasons that people get divorced, right now is the time where we're going to be seeing those happen. Like, the divorces probably aren't going to happen this moment, but the divorce is going to happen in a year from now after the stress of all of this has been starting to get released. What have you found has been some of the best ways in communicating with your wife that has, especially running your business up and down, I mean, it's all over the place. What have you found have been some of the best ways to communicate with your wife in some of those, to prepare yourself, I should say, for some of those struggles that are bound to come at some point or another?
Yeah, I think what's important, just understanding what's important to her is, are we going to be okay? And yes, we are going to be okay. We built a really strong foundation. And while I might be a little bit freaked out today, the future is bright. We're in this for the long game. And all the hard work and all the investments that we made over the years, it's okay to sell one of those if we need to shore up our life and our finances now. That's why we work so hard. And so just reassuring her that while I'm a little bit stressed and maybe I went off the handle because I saw that my daughter went to Starbucks, right? And bought a $7 coffee. And she decided to DoorDash it and it became a $15 coffee.
Of course.
We live a block from Starbucks because
this sounds like a very specific scenario. I get the feeling this may have happened within the last week.
Yeah. But while I'm a little bit freaked out today and maybe I'm counting a few pennies more than I did last week, sometimes the market is and the conversations of the day are playing tricks on my brain. When I do my one sheet with a GoPro, the facts say everything is fine. But when I listen to podcasts or I listen to the news or I have whatever, I talk to too many people and I get all the negativity, that messes with my mindset when the facts tell me. And sometimes I just need to go back to the facts and discuss those with my wife, that the facts say everything is fine. The end of the day, everything is fine and we'll be fine. We've been here before. It's the mindset playing tricks on me.
I think a lot of it stemmed from, we were in our late 20s. I'm 34 now. So we were like 27, 27, 28. And a lot of it stemmed from Sarah just being like, what the heck are we doing here? This has been great. We say we want to have a family. We have no foundation. We're living out of our backpacks. What the heck are we doing? And then my response being, I'm an international business major. I never thought I'd use my major, and technically I am now. So I'm building my resume. So I'm going to go back with, I'm doing a lot of cool gestures on Riverton.
Yeah, I didn't know. I've never seen these gestures pop up. For those of you who are just listening on the podcast, you're missing a show. Because on the YouTube side of the house, we're able to see these fireworks, these weird thumbs up popping up. I don't know how you're doing that, but that's impressive. Now I'm going to have to research this because tech is not my thing, but clearly it's yours because you're doing it without even knowing it.
So yeah, we're just the idea of, hey, we don't have a foundation. We need a foundation in order to move our life forward. So Sarah had a very clear feeling of we're just spinning our tires, wasting time. And for me, I was working in the flagship Apple store, 3 stories high, full glass front, leading a massive Genius Bar team and skateboarding to work every day and rock climbing in the Blue Mountains on the weekends. That was my life. And Sarah was having a really tough time. So it was a lot of growing on my side of, I need to support my wife better. It doesn't matter. I need to stop being selfish and I need to do what's right for our family and not just selfishly what I think is right. So it was like every 3 or 4 months, there would just be a tough conversation of what are we doing here? And I'd be like, this is what we're doing here. And then finally we had one of those conversations and I was like, you know what? That's right. Let's just go home. And I think when I said it out loud, when I verbalized it, was when in my brain, it clicked. I'm like, you're right. What are we doing? Let's just go home. In retrospect, I think experience we had as a married couple was just absolutely transformational for us, and just going through challenge and being on the same page and being able to get some of that wanderlust out of our systems, not feeling, what if we would have done this? Like we were able to do some really cool stuff. But then I also think one of the main reasons we were there is we got super involved in a small little local church there, and just absolutely just a life-changing experience. It was the first time we, as adults, had chosen to get involved with a church community with people who were like actually doing it, like actually doing the Christian thing, like not just a church on Sunday thing. Like, hey, we hang out a lot during the week and this is what we do during the week. And so it was a really cool growing experience for me in my faith walk.
Yeah, that's always a huge thing to be able to look back on and feel that support of the church and knowing that you're doing the right thing in that front. But I want to stay on the marriage thing for a minute and then I'll get back to the faith side of the house. But so for 2 years, was it the whole 2 years that you were there that she was saying, hey, what are we doing every 3 to 4 months? Or was the beginning not so bad and it turned into that? Or because that's a long time and I'm just trying to piece together like your mindset through those 2 years and what was it that finally got you over the hump?
No, I would say it was probably the last 6 to 12 months that we were there, because we traveled. So we left the US, it was like September 2015, and then UK and Europe until January 2016, and then got one-way flights to Sydney, January 2016. And then we got sponsored for visas, I think that May, April, May, June, somewhere in that summer. The traveling part was really fun. Then we went down to Australia, and that was a new experience. But when we were on our working holiday visas, it was like a 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So, if you've been deployed abroad, I don't want to get the nice blender because I'm just leaving in 3 months, or I don't want to invest in this relationship because why would I? Because I'm probably going to leave in a month. So why would I put all the effort in to try to get to know this person when it doesn't matter? Is a very bad perspective, and that's the one we had. And then we got sponsored for we that our time was going to be longer. And once we got sponsored for the visas, we're like, we'll commit to a year. We'll do a year here. And so once we got into that more long-term mindset of us being there for a year, sometime in there was when Sarah was just ready to come home, and I wasn't.
I could totally relate to the experience of just, why do this? Because we're going to be leaving soon. So one benefit about the military side of the house is that all of us are in the same boat. So it made life a little easier. You built those relationships in a very different way, especially when you're like actually deployed, Iraq, Afghanistan type of deployed versus just assigned somewhere for 3 years. It's such an odd feeling. And I'm watching military folks who, in North Carolina, I was stationed in North Carolina, and because there's a lot of military in North Carolina, they get married to somebody and leave, and then all of a sudden the spouse is, I don't know why we're doing this. This doesn't make any sense. And the military member's like, this is what I've been doing. You married me knowing this. And then you see all these divorces from people just wanting to jump ship and leave. Wives, or the spouses, I should say, are just, I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I know what I signed up for on this. And I guess it would be similar in your sense. I don't know if I know what I signed up for with this 2 to 3 month trip that's now 2 years long. But so for me and my wife, it's always been communication. It's one of the biggest things. And it sounds like your wife was big on pushing that communication side of the house for you. Do you feel like you were hiding from the communication, or you just weren't necessarily hearing it? Like you were listening to it, but not really hearing it type of thing? Or do you think you were clouded by the excitement that you were having? Where do you think that the disconnect was for that last year?
I think probably clouded by the excitement that I was having, but also thinking that, well, clearly I'm correct here. Thinking that just because in my mind I could justify the reasons for us being there, it meant that it was okay for us to push through it. Yeah, I think it was just selfishness, honestly. So Liz is Collinsville, and we're still friends. We get along great, and I'm very blessed. We have a very ample relationship, and she's a wonderful mother. We were high school sweethearts. Met while we were 15. We got married really young when we were 20. Well, she was working nights at the hospital. I was commuting to Oakland. We were like passing ships in the night, and we didn't have a call-in until we were both 29. So we're only like a month and a half apart in age. So the business was going, but it was a very busy time. And from my reflecting on it, and I could be wrong, this is my interpretation or reflection, but I realized that something is, one, I was just working like crazy. And however, we were getting invited to really cool events, and the mayor knows who you are, and this person knows who you, yada, yada, right? Bling and doing this. And Liz always wanted to be a nurse growing up. Like, she loved taking care of people. She loved that environment. And then when she got into it, she hated the environment. So I loved taking care of patients, but there's so many doctors sleeping with nurses and shares and cattiness, and nurses fighting each other and this and that. She just hated the politics of it. And what I realized is, I remember I took her on this trip, and we went to Italy, and we stayed at Villa d'Este, which at the time was in like the top 10, 20 hotels in the world. We had a suite there. It was incredible. Everything went perfect. We stayed top of everything. And I came back, and people were like, how was your trip? And this is pre-Facebook, right? So everybody wasn't posting everything. And I was like, oh, it was amazing. We had such an incredible time and this and that. And people asked Liz, hey, how was it? And she was like, oh, it was good. And as a man, that was so defeating. I thought, if I can't make her happy, like doing this. But what I realized, Adam, is my career trajectory went like this. Like, I just didn't. And I never took time. I couldn't understand why she wasn't happy for us, what we were doing. But she really was trying to find her identity and purpose during that time.
And I never spent any time exploring them with. So unfortunately, we just started growing apart. It wasn't like giant, huge fights and blow-ups and stuff all the time or any of that. We just grew apart. So Colin was 2 when we got divorced. I was your typical overworking, busy entrepreneur dad. Every day I'd come home and Colin would love on me, play with them. We would play for a little bit, but food, diaper, caregiving, you bump your knee, mom takes care of all that.
Yeah.
And so once we got divorced, and there he is, he's 2.5, and the first weekend I had him, we were 50-50 custody, and we've always been, hey, it doesn't matter if it's my day, your day, there's no such thing as what's just calling it's your third day, or you got something going on, or we've been super amicable about that stuff. But I was, dang, I gotta change his diaper. He fell, I gotta comfort him. But when it changed everything, I just decided in that moment, I'm gonna be the best freaking dad in.
How did the conversations end up happening to get to the point where it was like, hey, we need to step aside? And was there a way, do you think, that if somebody's in that situation now where they can prevent the divorce from happening before it gets there, how can that conversation happen before it gets to be too late? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I self-reflectively say, go back to basic human needs, right? Being validated, being wanted, being heard. Those things are probably not happening if you're in this state. So what action items can you do to make the other party feel validated and redefine winning? So if winning is winning an argument, that's the wrong definition. If the win is a happy, healthy marriage and our kids having our parents together, that's the ultimate win. And so in the 10X fund, that's the bigger goal, right? So 2X is thinking about that argument in front of you or the little nuances. And it's accumulation of things, and you build up this story. And again, you're wanting an ideal. An ideal is not reality. I mean, back to the story I told earlier. Why would I think I should be able to go to a busy restaurant, walk in, like the red carpet's going to roll out, all the food's going to be available. I'm going to instantly be, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I think we don't communicate enough about and be vulnerable enough to say what's really on our heart and getting those things out. And hey, you know what? Instead of me responding and being upset if I can't make her happy, I just took her on this amazing trip, and she was telling everybody it's okay. We were 4 kids rubbing 2 nickels together when we got married and trying to make it work, and now we're able to do this. And she still does it. Instead of saying, hey, you may not have intended it this way, but this is how I'm feeling. I don't feel validated as a man if I can't provide for you. And you may not understand. We live in our own bubbles of world. It's very rare that the other person is thinking, how could I piss James off?
Yeah.
I can't feel validated as a man. But instead I respond with an exterior shell of protection of not wanting to open that zone up. And then it just escalates to where it's easier to just walk away than have these difficult conversations. One thing that really helped that is Jenna and I went really at Jenna's property, said, hey, blending families, different backgrounds, all these things coming together. I think it would be really good to see like family therapists together, her and I. So I said, okay, I'll do a couple counseling appointments. And one thing that the counselor said that really helped me is she said, Jenna is a lot more emotional than you are, James. You're very logical, linear. You think several steps ahead. It's probably served you very well, business, etc. Just know, human psychology says when someone goes to an emotional state, the more logic you throw at them, the further you drive them away. Yeah. The compromise was, I said, okay, I can understand that. That makes sense. And so she said, you've got to be willing to give the other partner space, because when they've tripped into that emotional state, that you need to have space. You're not going to have a productive, logical conversation. But also, gentlemen, you have to provide some boundaries to say, I need some space, but let's talk about this tonight. So it's not in James's head floating, are we ever going to address this? Right? And so as we've been practicing and doing that, it's been instrumental, because as your brain starts to relax, I start redefining the win instead of winning the argument. It gives me space to do that. That's been, if you can find that, if you're in that tense situation, right? Hey, let's give some space, but set the outcome of, I want this to work.
Yeah.
Can I tell one cool story?
Nope. Stories aren't allowed. Sorry.
Stories are allowed?
Nope. All right. I think we broke that rule earlier. So go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. God really does turn beauty from ashes, and I love redemption stories, right? So here it is. I had gotten divorced, and I thought to them. So several years later, there was a woman who worked in our office, and she had worked at another client before, and it was a very successful business, and the owner developed literally hookers and cocaine habit, and ran the whole business in the ground. It was a great company, and the whole thing went out of business. And I went to this lady in her office, and I was just thinking, I said, I wonder, it had been 5 years or so since that had happened. I said, I wonder how, and I named him, I said, I wonder how he's doing. And she goes, that asshole, he cost so many people jobs. I hope he's miserable. And I looked at her and I said, I hope he's doing really well. She goes, not me. He costs all these people jobs and stuff. And I said, no, I hope he's recovered and he's doing well. I said, can I tell you what? She goes, I said, when I was going through my divorce, people think of the glamorous side. Oh, you can go date all these people. You can go treat. You've got split schedules. You got every other weekend free. Go do all the stuff. And this woman in town, who I knew well, just randomly reached out to me and said, hey, can I come by your office? I want to talk to you about something. And Adam, it was just gone. I just knew. I'm like, I think she's wanting to get a divorce and she's wanting to talk to me. And it wasn't like she was trying to hit on me or anything, just that's where she's at. So she came to the office and she said, hey, I know you're getting divorced from Liz and all that, but I know you're getting to travel and get to do all this stuff. And that sounds really fun. And I just wanted to ask you what that process is like, and has it been exciting and all this stuff. And I looked at her and I said, it's the most chaotic time I've ever had in my life. It's really unsettled. Like before you come home. So if you had to do it over again, like you should fight with everything you have for your marriage. Because I said, hard for me not to get emotional thinking about it, but it's, hey, every day I would come home and my son would go, Daddy, and jump in my arms. I said, so if you want that to not happen anymore, that's what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
It's not all glitz and glamour. It's a lot of, I totally ripped the stability rug out from underneath me in doing it. The beautiful story is she started crying. She said, she was already talking to an attorney, getting ready to file everything. She canceled all of that. This is now 11 years later. She's happily married to the same guy and family's doing great. Because I was telling that story to the woman in her office, she was crying. And I said, that's why I hope he's doing well. Because there's consequences for stuff. To walk home and see my son every day, or walk in to see my son greet me every day. But I had an amazing relationship with him out of it. But I still have consequences from it.
Yeah.
But now I'm able to actually help other people through my story that I wouldn't be able to if I didn't live that story. So I said, that's why I hope he's doing well, so he can help prevent somebody else or from going to. That's my little side story.
Don't let the painful situation be a waste, right? We're all going to have painful situations, but if you can help somebody else get through a similar situation, and I think that I loved the way you said that, because too many people go to the person they know is going to give them the answer that they want to hear. And that's staying in an echo chamber. And when you're in an echo chamber, you're not actually getting anything that's fruitful, right? You're just getting what you want to hear, and that's it. And if you're around a bunch of people that only give you what you want to hear, then why even talk to people? Why even go through it? You already have the answer in your brain. Why look for the advice? Why do it? If it's the same reason I tell people, like, don't go to the bar and complain with the person next to you about how bad your relationship is. Go to somebody who's doing well in their relationship, who's made it through some problems and knows how to work this, so that you can gain some insight that you don't have, right? And don't go, this person that approached you broke this portion of the advice too, is don't go to the opposite sex either, right? Don't go to the person who's been divorced 14 times if you're asking about marriage advice, and don't go to the person of the opposite sex to go ask about it either, because you're opening yourself up to way too many negatives, right? Thankfully, you were there to give wise counsel as opposed to poor counsel or try to sneak in there and become an even bigger stone in the shoe as she's walking around trying to figure this out.
No, I totally agree. And yeah, the whole you are who you hang around.
Yeah.
You were talking about looking for, I remember reading a really good book called Decisive on just how core of decision makers we are, especially entrepreneurs, and actually rate worse than teenagers for decision making. What they call the confirmation bias, right?
Yes.
Like you can see all these other things that say you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. And if you really want it, you'll find the one article or the one list, whatever it says you shouldn't.
One of the best decisions you can make in your life is the person that you get married to, and you clearly chose a good person because it puts you in the situation. Obviously, again, you can't connect the dots looking back or looking forward, but she put you in a position moving to somewhere that you didn't know you were going to move to find somebody that you didn't know you were going to find, to read a book you didn't know you were going to read, to eventually reach the pinnacle of being on a podcast with me.
And the funny thing is, like, without her, I don't think I would have had the courage to leave the small town I grew up in.
Yeah.
It was that place where you have the model where you like grow up, you go get a job, you get a college degree, then you come back and you raise your kids in that community. And without her ambition, desire, and her pushing me, I don't know that I ever would have left. And so I think about that all the time of, man, where would I be? Where would I be? And how lucky I am. And still to this day, she kicks my butt and tells me what I need to be doing and pushes me and cheerleads for me and is my biggest supporter. But she's also not a critic, but she knows what I'm trying to accomplish in our lives. She knows what I'm capable of, and she's not afraid to call me out. And I'm really lucky to have a partner that's not afraid to do that. And she's doing work on herself too, which is beautiful, and going to retreats and learning about health and focusing on her body and her energy and her mind and our kids and the foods. And it's just so cool, man. I think, again, it all ties back to just being learning based and curious.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. There are a lot of folks, especially in GoBundance, or I shouldn't say a lot, but a few of them that I've talked to where they feel like they're doing all this work on themselves, but their spouse isn't. So it's nice to see the two of you guys doing that together and trying to work hard. And how have you seen that kind of moving into your kids? Like, how have you guys had discussions on how you mentioned that you want to raise hard-headed, stubborn kids, right? Hopefully hard-headed, stubborn adults, but it's a process. Like, you have to really have your wife on board for that. What kind of conversations have you had around raising the kids and how that looks and what your goals are?
I'm going to be honest with you, man. We haven't had as deep and meaningful of conversations as probably many people would think. Like, I would say we really do a good job of parenting shoulder to shoulder most of the time and letting each of us be in our lane. And then we get face to face if we have to about the conversation or the tone or what we're trying to accomplish and stuff. But we are on the same page of just, at the end of the day, we want our kids to find the way or make the way to do whatever they want. And do we baby them at times? Absolutely. Do we spoil them at times? Absolutely. Are we tough on them at times? Absolutely. But we have a really good team. We bounce off each other pretty good. When I'm frustrated, my wife steps in. When she's frustrated, I step in. And it's not really spoken. It's more just unspoken. The one thing I'll tell you is we've had a lot of conversations around commitment. I think commitment in kids and a commitment in adults is super important. So our daughter happens to be a really good soccer player, but I don't like soccer anymore. And we're like, okay, great. We committed to play this season. So after the season, if you don't want to play anymore, we cannot play anymore. I want to stop now. Yeah, we understand you want to, but that's not what we're going to do. We made a commitment to this team. We made a commitment to yourself, and we're going to follow through on your word. And I think us being on the same page around that is super important, because it would be so easy to say, yeah, sure, let's skip that. And then all of a sudden you get this quitter mindset. The next thing she's quitting gymnastics and cheer and dance and music and pool and sweat. Trying to just instill in her, hey, you made a commitment, you stick with it. And then with our son, we're just trying to celebrate things. So one of my favorite things to do as a parent is celebrate failure. Our son falls, it's go nuts and cheer like he just won the World Series, because he got back up and he's alive and he's okay. Good for you for trying, right? Like, you only fall in life when you're trying to do things that are hard or outside of your comfort zone. So cheer it on. Like, our daughter falls off her bike, she skins her knee. I don't care if you stay in your clothes. I don't care if you stay in the bed or the couch, whatever. I don't care what happens. I just care that you get back on the bike. And so we celebrate it. We applaud it. We applaud them taking risks. We encourage them to ask for their own food at restaurants. We're just trying to push them to become their own little people. And then whatever they want to do from that, we'll just be there to support and guide them into like staying on the right path, which is like away from drugs and doing legal things. But we want them to be their own people.
I love the image of the way you said that, raising the kids side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and only getting face to face when it's needed. One day, I'm a Christian, and one of the guys I really like to listen to, one of the things he talks about is the imagery of, my dog is in here trying to chew a piece of paper airplane while I'm trying to buy it. Okay. Give me my paper airplane back. Or my son's. But anyways, before I was rudely interrupted by my dog, is the imagery that he gives is Eve was created from the rib of Adam. And that's exactly where she's supposed to be, is right by his side. It's not in front of him, but right by his side in everything that they're doing and working hard together. So I love that imagery of just having, and I think today we have a lot of the toxic masculinity talk and in my opinion, a lot of nonsense around that. And it's okay if we could just actually be honest and say, no, like there does need to be a leader of the house and there does need to be a leader of the family, but it doesn't mean that the other person is not important. Like I want my wife right by my side, but at the same point, she expects me to be able to lead when it needs to happen.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, Adam. I think leadership inside of a family, inside of a household is a relay race. There's going to be legs where I'm running with the baton, and there's going to be legs where I need her to run with the baton, and there might be a leg where we need our 4-year-old to run with the baton because dad's hands are full, son just peed his pants, wife's handling that, and we need to get the dog inside or whatever it is, right? And so one of the things we're trying to focus on is just leadership isn't a him or a her thing. Leadership is like each and every one of us need to embody that and step up when our number is called or our role is called. And for me, it's not about ego. It's not about pride. Do I get stubborn at times? Absolutely, man. I am so far from perfect. But at the end of the day, I know my wife. I know what she's capable of. I know my daughter. I know what she's capable of. I know our son. He's 2, man. I could tell you he could boss the world around. He's strong. And so if we go to a restaurant and he wants to lead, man. You order first, whatever you want to do. I think that's well said. And I'm really lucky to have an incredible wife who's willing to do those things and willing to be by my side and candidly willing to put up with a lot of my crap because I'm pretty stubborn. I'm driven. I'm motivated. I'm eager to continue to take on the world. And she's there cheering me on and supporting me.
What sort of conversations have you had with Amy about this, about what your goals are as parents, what your goals are as business operators, and how involved is she on the business side of the house?
She's not really involved in the business. So I don't remember if it's before recording, but she's in the Navy as well. Been about 16 years or so, split some time between active and reserves, but right now she's on active duty for a couple of years. And so she's full-time doing that. Even before when she was just doing reserve, I shouldn't say just, when she was doing reserve at a time there, she was not involved in the real estate business. She's aware. She knows many of my partners. If something were happening to me, she would know who to go to ask it and stuff about them. So she's aware of it, not in the details. From a conversation perspective and stuff, I won't say that we have a great framework week by week or anything, but we do things like the annual kind of couple goal retreat and stuff where we talk about what are our business goals, what are our goals for our family, all within a day or two. So we're having those kind of conversations. What characteristics do we want our kid to grow up with and stuff? And then I think that throughout the year, and so, and of course, my conversations also with within the Kinetic Command tribe and things we're doing, give me an opportunity because we talk about some different topics each month and stuff. And those give me an opportunity to refresh and think about what I'm thinking about it. But then also maybe ask Amy a few questions. Hey, this is what we're talking about. Here's thoughts I had. Do you agree or not agree? Or you just have a kind of a nonchalant conversation, but it seems if we're on the same page. And I think day to day, it is more like we observe our kid, like the characteristics that they're having. Do we behavior type stuff and we have conversations. Maybe kids are outside playing and we said, Layla's had, X behavior recently. I'm not sure what's causing that. And think about, hey, is it something that we're doing that we can adjust? Are we not giving them enough focus or trying to reward? Last night, Jack had a baseball game and it was really awesome to watch him high-fiving his teammates, even when something not great happens or his hustling and stuff down the baseline. We just try to reward that kind of stuff. And to get back to what you're making, I think that one example I've given to a lot of people is I mentioned earlier, being present for the kids in the morning. And it used to be that I was trying to get work done. I'd go wake them up, go back to my computer, try to get some work done. They went back, they're not dressed right. I get upset. Because I get upset, they get upset. The morning routine was a disaster. Yeah. And so that was one of the things when we came back, I have an hour on my calendar that's time with the kids. Yeah. And it generally makes things a lot smoother where I can go wake them up and be patient, spend some time with them. They know that I'm there for them. It's a lot smoother of a morning and stuff. And so I think that we let these daily, how's the family doing? How are the kids doing? Not necessarily drive the conversation, but I think we can see, okay, maybe I spent a little bit too much time on the business. I need to focus on the kids a little bit more right now, and things like that, whether it's shift back and forth.
Do you guys have the type of relationship, you and your wife, that you're able to call each other out on those types of things? Oh, my dog is jumping up on my desk. Lovely.
Yeah, I think we do. We try not to do that in front of the kids, just to try to show that support. And I think that we generally have that kind of conversation. And I don't know, it's always black and white where you call them out like, hey, you really screwed this one up. Sometimes what's been going on and ask you to see where the other person is. Maybe there's some stuff going on in my business that I haven't expressed, but she might be able to see that physically, or maybe I've been a little bit different the past week or things like that. And so she asks him and gives me the hint that maybe the kids could use some time or vice versa. So we're pretty good about being open. I think the harder part probably for a lot of us is being receptive of that. Is even sometimes we often know it's the truth when we get called out. It probably hurts because we know it's the truth, right? And so I think being receptive of that and trying to adjust our actions on the board.
You got married at a young age, right? 20? Is that about right?
Yeah. 19.
Yeah, so 19 years old. What led you to getting married at 19 years old? Because that sounds shocking to, I'm sure, some folks, especially nowadays, because you and I are pretty close in age, and I've only been married for 13 years. Walk me through that.
My wife and I were just talking about this the other night.
Yeah.
I knew that I had found the best person for me. And I knew that pretty early. And it was just about how long could I wait to marry this person before other things pulled our direction and focus away. To me, you just got to a point where we were going on separate paths, and if we weren't going to get married, then the outcome was very much in doubt. So the choice was either marry her now when I was 19 or risk losing the relationship. And I jumped in. I joke with my wife because my plan, which didn't work out, was I'll ask her to marry me now, and that'll buy me a few more years where we'll be different. I thought that was a good plan. So I executed the first part, which is asking her to marry me. That went great. The next day we talked, she had a date and a deposit on church, and it was 9 months away. And I said, I thought we could be engaged for a few years. And my wife's, she's great. She's amazing. She came back and she said, I thought you wanted to marry me. Do you want to marry me or not? I said, yes. She said, then we have a date. So that was it. There was no more discussion. The plan was changed, and we got married. What we did.
She was showing you what grit looks like. This is what grit looks like.
Yeah, I totally played into her plan, which was let's do it. And no regrets. Best thing I ever did. We didn't plan on getting pregnant right away. 2 months later, okay, now we're pregnant, but we did want to have kids. So now we're like, we just have to shift the whole thing to having no kids 20 years later, which is where we did about 6 months ago.
That's phenomenal. All right.
I spent many years being the stereotypical alpha male who wants to go out and get the next shiny thing. And you just realize, I said it earlier, it just becomes sand in your mouth once you get it. And there's trillions of dollars in marketing spent every day, every year, however you want to measure it, to go get those shiny things. And that's what being a man about. That's what being successful is about. But it's not. You get to that point, you realize you have more of a treasure in your kid and in your wife than you could ever achieve out chasing shiny things. But we give a sliver of our time and attention and priority to those things versus what they deserve. And the matter that companies don't grow and make money if we spend all our time and resources on relationships with our kids and our wife.
Yeah.
There's no marketing that supports them. Apple's got to grow. Microsoft's got to grow. All the mortgage companies, all these companies have to have 10, 15, 20% growth every year, which means you got to be constantly chasing and buying the shiny things. So I'd love to turn our economy around where success equals having a better relationship with your kids and having a deeper marriage with your wife. And that's what we spend our money on. But it's not the reality. We have to be counterculture. We got to fight against the norm. We got to be the minority who invests in that while everyone else is saying you got to chase this, because that's just the way it is. You can't change that machine. But it does make it hard, and I wish I would have figured that out a long time ago.